Hey guys, doing a re-record. Obviously you won't see the first record. I was outside and the voice not the voice sorry, but the audio wasn't great and it was very windy and my lips looked a bit dry, so I'm gonna have to do this again. But I thought I should do just a continuation of the conversation yesterday regarding the Rodgers deal. I'm seeing a lot of overreaction from Arsenal fans. As usual, this isn't new. We do this all the time, and I thought I should come in again and just kind of try and level it out, because obviously you would know if you watch the channel, the small channel, whatever. You would know that I wasn't really keen on the Rodgers deal from the beginning anyways. When the first news kind of broke out from like the main journals and all these things, I kind of just said I'm not really sure where we go with this deal. I'm not sure what we're trying to do with Rodgers, and based on Arteta's previous recruitment in terms of the attacking areas, I just don't trust his judgment. And if they're saying that this Arteta was spearheading this, is what was concerning me from the beginning. Because first of all, I always say we should not be recruiting for managers anyway, because managers tend to not last very long. Arteta is an exception, but the general consensus is that a lot of managers don't tend to stay very long. So if you're already thinking about recruiting for manager and then potentially it doesn't work out the middle of the season next season, you're now scrambling, and the moment you let him go, you're left with a lot of players that were fixated on a particular way of playing and a particular type of system that they were used to under the previous manager, what would have been Arteta, and then now you're fixed with a manager that you're not really sure where he fits within the ecosystem of Arsenal. So that was my thing. And the second thing is that we were briefed very similar to, I use this example, but last summer, if you guys remember, when obviously we were linked with Noni Madueke, there were obviously talks from very early on that Noni was admired by Arteta and all these things. Arteta wants him and all these things. So this is what I'm saying with this whole top target thing for Arteta. I'm not sure how much we should really fall for this. And when I say fall for this, I mean I'm not sure how much of this we should actually be buying into, because a top target for manager is just vocabulary for journals that they use to drive interest for a particular player, maybe because the agent has come in and is trying to drive a bargaining war with particular clubs to drive the price up, should I get any contract for the player and all these things. So the whole top target word is you should think of that term very loosely, because again, we don't know what the conversations are with Andrea Berta and all these Rich Garlic and all these guys and Arteta. We don't know how much of these conversations are happening behind closed doors. We don't know who they've identified as a top target. Rodgers may have been a first option for Arsenal, but we're not sure how willing Arsenal were going in terms of trying to get this deal done. Because if you guys think that they found out about the Chelsea hijack yesterday, then you're living under a rock. They must have known about this from like Thursday, Wednesday, that Chelsea were up in the pressure and Chelsea were gonna come in and slap the deal done, slap the money on the table, agree personal terms and all these things. The fact that they've agreed personal terms with Rodgers tells you that Chelsea were always in the conversation. A lot of journals said they were briefing that Rodgers only wants Arsenal. Rodgers is only only fixated on going Arsenal and all these things. That was obviously bullshit. And again, another example of why a lot of these journals are just mouthpieces for these agents, for these clubs representatives, for these intermediaries. So when you see a lot of these transfer talks from these even these reputable journals like Ornstein and Fabrizio, even though he's not really a journalist, he's an influencer, but nonetheless, even though you're seeing a lot of these talks from these from these journals, you have to kind of use their words very loosely and just make your own interpretation. An example: this Bruno deal is taken a lifetime to get done, and don't be surprised if this deal doesn't happen as well, because this is not the first time we're in for Bruno. Obviously, you guys, you'd know, if you're an Arsenal fan, you'd know before Bruno went to Newcastle, when he was at Lyon, he was linked with us. We were very close to signing him, and the deal kind of fell through. But anyways, going back to this Rodgers deal, yeah, Chelsea were always in the picture. From what we're seeing now, and how this deal was kind of manufactured into Chelsea's favour, it seems like Chelsea were always Chelsea were always on the other side, because for you to agree personal terms and the fee with Villa this quickly on, because a week or two ago, we were hearing that Chelsea are kind of on the outside floating, but they're not really sure whether they should come in and take Rodgers. That clearly has proven that Chelsea were actually genuinely interested in Rodgers, and they were actually in a serious kind of they had a serious genuine interest in Rodgers. The thing I would say about Chelsea is we've seen Chelsea move aggressively like this a lot of times. This is part 700 of Chelsea doing this to many clubs, not just Arsenal. They've done this with Caicedo, with Liverpool. They've done this with Romeo Lavia with Liverpool. They've done this with Mikhailo. Remember Mikhailo as well. They've done this now with Rodgers. Chelsea do this all the time. Their kamikaze approach in transfer windows is the reason why they're 10th. Look, I don't want to do this whole tribal thing, all this food chain, all this crap. No, I'm not here to do this. But one thing you need to know is that Chelsea's kamikaze approach in transfer windows is the reason why they're 10th. They've paid well over the odds for Rodgers, and I'm not entirely sure why they've done that. In the sense that I'm not looking at this Chelsea side and thinking left wing is definitely an area for them to improve on. Okay, cool. They need to improve their whole squad. I hear that, but the critical areas that they need to improve for me is their back line and potentially their goalkeeper as well. That's where I would have broken the bank for players across that back four. But the fact that they've gone for a left winger, it screams to me Mikhailo Part 2, in the sense that they've seen Arsenal were interested in, and they said, cool, fuck it, let's drop the bag. This looks like that, in the sense that also what we're being briefed is that Xabi wanted him. Xabi has sold him the project, sold him the Chelsea idea, and he's wanting to go there. I'm not entirely sure how it works for him over there at Chelsea. We'll wait and see on that aspect. But the fact that Chelsea have come in and taken this away from us is going to leave a lot of Arsenal fans in a sour mood. But I always say this is, don't interrupt your opponent when they're making a mistake, because I think this is a mistake in my opinion. 120 million for a guy that to me doesn't look like the final product, still looks raw in some aspects, is a crazy gamble to say the least. 120 million for a guy that against France didn't look like a 120 million pound player, in the sense that you play him in central areas, and this is what apparently they're going to try and do, play him as a double 10. Good luck with that, because I'm not entirely sure what you're getting from him in the 10. I think if you're going to play Rodgers, he looks better on the left, but I just don't think he's of a level for Arsenal that you're looking and you're thinking, yeah, cool, this is the sort of signing that raises the level for us. This sort of signing that we look at and I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is the signing that we should be making. And that's kind of been my approach in this signing. And I think that's how Arsenal fans should look at it. Look, it's a top target for Arteta. Look, I've said this in previous match reactions. Stop recruiting for Arteta, because we're in this mess in the first place because of this manager in terms of how he's recruited. My kind of approach this summer has always been that we're gonna have to sell to buy. And what I mean by that is not exactly what you think. We have a lot of players in this Arsenal team that are on extortionate amount of money, guys. Like, you have to properly look into the database with this Arsenal team, yeah, and look at the players who are currently under contract, and look at the wages that they're on, and look at how long they've been on those wages. There's a lot of players in this team that just need to be shipped, guys. And maybe you have to look at the Eze deal as potentially the hindrance to why we're in this position in the first place. Not because of the wages, but in the sense that I don't think Eze was signed as part of the plan. I think it's so obvious that Eze was a panic buy, in the sense that Havertz got injured. We knew Eze wanted Arsenal. They reached an agreement with Spurs, and then all of a sudden Eze now is going to Arsenal. And it's the same here. Like, I believe that what I believe with this Rodgers deal is, here's what my own take on this is. I think Arsenal were genuinely interested in Rodgers. I think that's very obvious to see. We were in for Rodgers. They reached out to the clubs involved and they said, look, we want to do a deal for Rodgers. It seems like Arsenal were going to wait until the World Cup ends and then accelerate the deal further. I believe at the start of the window, the deal would have been done at around 80 to 100, but because Arsenal took so long, that premium, for whatever dumb reason, went up. Even though you'd think that premium went up because of his performance in the World Cup, but I'm not looking at that England side in the World Cup campaign and thinking, yeah, that fee's gonna go up, man, to get this deal done. I'm looking at that Rodgers deal and I'm thinking, like 80 is probably the max fee for him. And if I'm being completely honest, 50 to 60 million is about where his value really is in terms of his ability, and obviously factor in today's market. If you're just going based on ability alone, he's a 50 million pound player max, and even less, because you saw Tielemans has gone for 30. Andres Santos has gone for about 30-40 million to Man United, and then Rodgers is going for almost triple that. Like, you can't tell me that Rodgers is a significant player to warrant that kind of fee. And is he gonna go into that Chelsea side and look like the world's best thing? I'm not entirely sure. I think the issue I had with Rodgers is that it's good to see that Arsenal were not willing to go beyond 100 mil, which is fine. I'm not mad at that. The second thing is I'm not the recruitment team. I'm thinking and I'm seeing what was their thinking behind Rodgers, because here's my take, and I think Arsenal fans can relate to this, right? If Arteta wanted him, this is what's going to happen. He was going to try him out in on the left-hand side, realize he's not of that level, realize he can't really do his thing on the left, or realize that, okay, he's not the kind of player I wanted on the left. Cool. There's going to be a game where, actually, you know what, we got Martinelli. Maybe try him on the 10 with Eze. Realize that's not going to work and there's no balance there. Try him out on the right hand side. Realize actually he's not really that good on the right. In some insanity world, he plays him out in up top. And then before you know it, this is looking like an expensive experiment that's gone extremely wrong. And that's how I see this deal. This deal, I'm just not sure where Arsenal were thinking with how they were going to use him. This is my initial reason why I was drawn away from this deal, because I'm thinking, I was saying this whole summer, we need a left winger that's explosive, but also a winger that has a level of ability on the ball that we don't have at this moment in time. This is why selling Trossard, to me, I was a bit upset about, because selling Trossard and keeping Martinelli, I would have done it the other way, because Trossard is a harder profile to find in modern football now than finding a Martinelli profile, because pretty much all modern left wingers fit that kind of Martinelli kind of profile in the sense that they're very quick off the ground. On the ball, they're not the greatest. They can run in behind the center offs, and they can and against tight legs, they're an awkward player to come up against. Trossard, on the other hand, is effectively a 10 playing out wide, in the sense that he can play on the left hand side, and he's able to play those balls in between the two centre backs and in behind. That makes a lot of sense for a player of his profile. So in that sense, I can maybe see they were thinking Rodgers is a Trossard replacement, which is fair. I can kind of see where they were thinking. My thing is I just don't think he's that level. This has been my thing that I've been saying this whole time. I think he's mad overrated, guys. I've said this for so long that I just don't see where I don't understand why you'd pay that much for Rodgers. Like I said, he's a £50 million player, and for that kind of price, cool. Let's have him. You know, he can give you that occasional Rashford moment, which is essentially what he is. He's a Cody Gakpo Rashford kind of profile, in a sense that he doesn't look like he presses that much anyway. If you give him the ball, he might nutmeg and then slap it top bins and it hits the post, and then everyone gets gassed, and then maybe, you know, he's dangerous in set pieces. Maybe that's where we were thinking. But in terms of an out-and-out winger, a profile for that left-hand side, or an attacking profile, I just don't see this with Rodgers. I think you got Junior Creepy who's there. You got Iliman Ndiaye. I don't think we'll get him. But you got other guys, even Somerville. You're better off going and getting a fucking Somerville than Rodgers, in the sense that Somerville's profile is way better than Rodgers, because we know what Somerville is. Somerville is a winger, is an attacking option. He can maybe play on that right when he needs to, but we know full well he's not going to try and experiment him in attacking areas. If you told me Zolis and Rodgers, or Zolis and not Barcola, Zolis and Somerville, I'm taking Zolis and Somerville, because that's a better profile for what we need, guys. You know, it's not the name cool, I hear that, but if you're thinking about profiles, Somerville and Zolis is a much better fit for us than Zolis and Rodgers, because Rodgers, potentially, you get Rodgers in and Ethan goes. That's another thing you have to consider, because they're seeing Rodgers as a 10. So if Rodgers coming as a 10, that blocks the path for someone like Ethan. And I think Ethan is someone that needs to be in this team, because we need a player like him. So it's bittersweet, but it's about getting the profiles. It's about getting players who fit a certain way we need to play. And if Rodgers was that, and we've pulled out of it because of the fee, I don't care, for whatever reason it was, the fee, his grandmother doesn't like Arsenal, whatever. Chelsea have saved us from an expensive mistake, and for that I am thankful for. You know, don't get grabbed and don't get drawn into this football discourse that's gonna make you end up looking like an absolute twat, because that's ultimately what's gonna happen when you go on Twitter or X. But this deal, guys, we have saved ourselves a massive headache by avoiding this Rodgers deal. I'm telling you now, do not interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. That old saying is very, very, very evident here. This would have been an expensive mistake. 120 million plus the 6-year contract. So there's probably amortized. So 120 divided by 6, it's about 30 million plus the wages. About 40 million a year for Rodgers, give or take. He's just not it, guys. I'm hearing Diamonde, stay away from him as well. He looks like he learned to play football 2 months ago, guys. I'll be so real. I watched him against, when he was playing for Cote d'Ivoire, and I saw him against a couple teams here and there. I saw people getting gas because he cooked Gapier, but he's not it either. I think this is just his agent trying to drive PSG to hurry up a little bit with him. I think he's going PSG. He wants to go there. PSG want him. Let him go there. I'm not really a fan of Yan Diamonde. Barcola makes more sense in terms of profile. Again, it's guys, it's profile. We need profile. We don't need a 10 because we have Eze, Odegaard, and Ethan, and also potentially Mikel Merino if he wants to use him there. The 10 profile is not what we need. We need a left winger. We need attack. We need to improve our attack. When we don't improve the players behind, it's just a case of we need to be able to progress the ball a lot better from midfield to attack, which is the reason why our attack struggles. I hear that. But if we're looking specifically in terms of our attack, in terms of profiles, our attack is awful, guys. Like, I've been saying this since the start of last summer, the season before that. Our attack is crap. It's beyond crap. It's, yeah, less said about that, the better. So, look, for whatever reason, you know, we will come out of this deal the better. I'm telling you now. It won't be now because of the euphoria where he's holding up the Chelsea shirt or no the promo. Also fans will feel a bit like we missed out. But this is Mikhailo part 2. This is a lot of players part 2. We've seen this with Chelsea in terms of how they move with managers. It's not a deal that we should lose sleep over. It just isn't. I don't think he's someone that I looked at and I said, yeah, this is the sort of guy we need. And for 120 mil, I'm laughing. Let him go Chelsea. And the people saying that we don't have the money for it, I disagree, because they came into that Rodgers deal knowing that they were prepared to spend a certain amount of money, and for some reason Arsenal were not willing. However, talks about Bruno not progressing and all these things is worrying in a sense, because the player apparently has said he wants to leave. So what's taking so long? Is it the fee? Is it, I don't know what it is. Andrea Berta, this is on you now. So I can understand Arsenal's frustration in the sense that we're champions and we need to start getting a move on. I completely understand that. But also, let's not end up in the same situation Liverpool did. They spent so much money last summer, but most of their players, they need to polish up on. So only time will tell. But get your ass and start moving, because it's only less than a month, I think, until the season starts. So we've got time, because those can happen within a matter of days. So we've got time, but it's just whether or not we will get that time to. It's how we use that time. Sorry. So I'll leave that as it is, and I will see you guys in the next video.